I think we just go ahead and start without them.
I've got some questions.
What time is supposed to start?
Wayne, would you like to answer on behalf of the minister?
Oh, there you go.
I'm not asking
Oh,
you.
I didn't know the
in any official
chairperson was here.
capacity.
I didn't see the chairperson. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
You know, you've been known to chair meetings occasionally. I'm surprised you didn't notice.
Well, you're now up on the camera, so it's all good. I can see what's going
I was keeping a low profile.
I see that. That's good. Well, carry on.
That's what I'd like to do.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Crown Services. As previously agreed, questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The member for St. James.
Some discussion around Manitoba Hydro International, and hoping to start off with having the Minister describe how much profit was earned by Manitoba Hydro International for Manitoba Hydro over the past 4 years.
Hi, thanks, everyone. I apologize. The member from St.
Minister?
James is looking for 4 years. Can you hear
Minister,
me?
I have to recognize you for the sake of Hansard before you can speak. So,
Sorry.
no problem. Honourable Minister, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. I apologize. We're working diligently here to provide the member from St. James with those numbers, and he has asked for 4 years, and we are going to be able to do that. We ask the committee for a little bit more time.
Thank you, Minister. Just let me know when you'd like to speak. Minister Wharton, can I ask you a question for clarity?
Certainly.
Are you presently endeavouring to get those answers in the next few moments, or are you requesting a longer amount of time, maybe a couple of days, to get back to the member for St. James? Honourable Minister.
No, thank you, and I'll clarify. No, thank you. No, I'll clarify, Mr. Chair. We're endeavoring to get that answer for him right away. Give us another minute, and if not, we'll certainly move on to the member's next question, if that's acceptable.
I think the members.
1 minute.
I think there's a desire from the members to proceed with another question. So, Minister, I'll give you 30 seconds or so, and then if there's an answer forthcoming, that's terrific. And after about that amount of time, I'll let the member proceed with another question.
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you. And we do have, and we'll endeavor to get the other 2 years, but we do have fiscals 19 and 20 available right now. And the department is working on getting the other numbers for the member of St. James. Right now, we're looking at a consolidated net income in 2019 of $118 million, and in 2020, $99 million, and that's in consolidated net income.
The member for St. James.
I thank the Minister for the response. I look forward to clarity on earnings in prior years. I know that the Minister is likely aware that Manitoba Hydro International does incredible work, world-class work, and that they've got experts in their fields with knowledge that really doesn't exist in many other places, as can be told by their incredible contracts that they get all around the globe. And I'm hoping the Minister can comment on his perspective on the value of Manitoba Hydro International specifically.
So, Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
So a little bit of a technical difficulty. I missed the last part of that question. It went blank. So could you just repeat the last part of the question, please?
Member for St. James.
Gladly. I was just looking for the Minister to comment on his perspective on the overall value of the work that MHI does.
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank the member from St. James for that question. And with a business background, the member shares, of course, maybe not quite as long or in depth as my career. That from time to time, our corporations, our businesses, whether it be public or private sector, are in need of a review, simply because of changing times. And speaking of changing times, we know where we're at with COVID right now, and they change not only by the day but by the minute, I would argue. However, that being said, certainly the member is aware that Manitoba Hydro and the Manitoba Hydro Board commissioned a report of their entire operation with a scope of ensuring that they're meeting not only the needs of Manitobans today, but the needs of Manitobans for generations to come. And certainly the member would agree and probably commend the fact that they are taking a look at the future of Manitoba Hydro, which includes their subsidiaries like Manitoba Hydro International. So good for them. We certainly we support their initiative. This initiative that was first started by by Manitoba Hydro and continues to be the focus of Manitoba Hydro's plan going forward to ensure that, as we talked about yesterday, that Manitobans are protected, whether it come to rates or other aspects. So certainly we support that ongoing review, and we look forward to working collaboratively again with all aspects of Manitoba Hydro to ensure that Manitobans are protected, and rates that they currently enjoy will continue to be enjoyed for generations to come.
The member for St. James.
Thank you. In an internal memo from Manitoba Hydro International, staff were told for the period from September 2nd to October 7th to not aggressively pursue new work, actively pursue bids, or seek out new customers. Could the minister please explain the rationale for that direction? What was the onset and how was that timeline determined and why?
Sure.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, and certainly thank the member for the question. And as I alluded to in my opening comments regarding the operation of Manitoba Hydro and their subsidiaries, this again is a decision Manitoba Hydro to move forward with the review and ensure that I would suspect that, as it was in my private sector business, that we get a full, comprehensive understanding of all our subsidiaries, including Manitoba Hydro International, to ensure, a number of areas. Do we need to look at how we do business differently? Do we need to evolve differently? Maybe there are some good aspects to our business that we can build on. Certain things that need to be addressed, and that's exactly what Manitoba Hydro's undertaken. And again, certainly we would support that. I think any business owner would support that as well. And certainly we commend the Crown Corporation for taking on this initiative. It's a huge undertaking, absolutely massive. I mean, you're looking at a corporation, $1 billion corporation plus, and with unfortunately saddled with billions of dollars in debt, that has evolved based on decisions made by the former government. And certainly, there couldn't have been a better time for Manitoba Hydro to undertake these reviews to ensure that there's value, of course, there's value for money, and Manitobans are being protected.
The member for St. James.
I'm hoping the minister can provide more clarity. He's alluding to the fact that Hydro is engaged in a review of sorts. I would agree with him that it's always important for organizations to do strategic reviews, to examine their lines of business, to understand where improvements should be made or where changes should be made. However, what's particularly concerning is that in this case, This review also happens to align with a stop work order, which is what we've just outlined here for the minister, which he didn't really provide much clarity on the reasons for. And I think the minister might agree that while reviews might make sense, there's a lot of questions to be asked about why we would stop Manitoba Hydro International from being able to pursue any new contracts, and also having a requirement that any further business is able to be cancelled within 90 days' notice, as Manitoba Hydro International was notified. So there's a lot of important questions here about why we're crushing Manitoba Hydro International's ability to continue doing business, why we're essentially creating a scenario here where, financially speaking, they are ultimately being set up to look as though their books are a lot worse than they are. And if he could provide any clarity on what the need for the stop sell order was to allow a review to take place. Why was the stop sell order needed in order for Hydro to conduct this review?
Mr. Chair?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair. And again, the member is, asking a question that essentially I answered before, in the sense that this is a Manitoba Hydro decision. This is a corporate decision based on doing a review of their operation, and far be it for Crown Services directly to be involved in that, simply because we saw the meddling of the past by the former government, and obviously the effects on government being directly involved in the operating day-to-day of our Crown corporations. So certainly that's not an initiative that this government or this department would ever endeavor on doing. And we again are in full support of the review, as the member indicated. He agrees with that process, and that's good news. We agree on one point. Certainly, we should agree on the point that if the corporation determines they need to put certain protocols in place while undertaking a review, then that is under the full opportunity for Manitoba Hydro to make that decision. And it's certainly not a government decision. It is a Manitoba Hydro decision.
The member for St. James.
The minister continues to suggest that his government has had nothing to do at all with the decisions at Hydro. So I'll play along and I'll ask him, does he believe that Hydro should be able to divest of Manitoba Hydro International should they see fit?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad the member wants to play along. That's good. We can maybe get along as well, and that's my intention during this process. Certainly, again, the question that the member asked is not an answer that I would give. I mean, again, this is going to be a Manitoba Hydro and a Manitoba Hydro Board decision on how they ensure that Manitobans are protected. This is not Crown Services' decision. This is not our government's decision. We understand that what Crown Services and what Crown corporations, what their duties are, and they report to Manitobans, and they report to ensure that Manitobans are protected. So, again, to the member's question, the bottom line is, in this view, is, and our view is, that's a Manitoba Hydro decision, and we respect any decision that they make for the betterment of Manitobans.
The member for St. James.
Well, I really appreciate that the minister is telegraphing quite clearly the approach that they're going to be using when Manitoba Hydro International is put on the open market, in absolving himself and his government entirely from any decisions relating to protecting a subsidiary that makes Manitobans $110 million last year alone, it's pretty clear that he is sort of he's telegraphing the approach and the language that we can expect to see from them relating to MHI as we go forward. I'm hoping the minister can explain how much work Manitoba Hydro International lost out on because of the stop sell order that continues to be placed upon them.
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to, if I may, the committee can just give a little latitude. I want to make sure I get all the answers that the member from St. James had asked in his original question. And I do have fiscal 16, 17, and 18. So if the member is ready to write, I can read them off to him. 2016, 17, 71 million, 17, 18, 37 million, and 18, 19, 121 million.
The member for St. James.
So I'll just repeat the question. Can the minister explain how much work MHI lost out on as a result of the stop sell order that had been placed upon them?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
I certainly thank you again, Mr. Chair. We would have, again, no knowledge of that whatsoever. So I don't know where the member's going, but I've mentioned many times that, this review and the direction that Manitoba Hydro has taken has been a direction and a decision by the board and Manitoba Hydro, and we certainly respect that. I know the member has a tough time letting Crown corporations act in their own way without them meddling in. But, the bottom line is, and I've made it very clear, and we're on the record, and Manitobans listening online will appreciate that things have changed since the last 17 years under the NDP. Crown corporations have a mandate. They know their mandate. In particular, Manitoba Hydro, they know that they're there to mandate to ensure that Manitobans are protected. They have some of the most reasonable rates throughout Canada, and that will continue under our watch. Hopefully, Madam Speaker, the NDP do not have an opportunity to meddle in any Crown corporations again going forward. We see the outcome of that, Mr. Chair, and I'll leave it at that for now.
And if I may, Honourable Minister, I prefer to be referred to as Mr. Chair than Madam Speaker, but I think it was an honest mistake. The member for St. James.
I don't know how to follow that. I think what's important here, and I think we've made it pretty clear with the bill that we introduced just recently, that we do absolutely feel as though we should be protecting those subsidiaries of Manitoba Hydro from sale by this government. We do believe that those subsidiaries provide an incredible amount of value for Manitobans in the form of revenues that help to keep rates low. And we do believe that they need to be protected, and protected especially from governments like the one that this minister belongs to. I'd like to shift just to asking some questions about the number of employees at Manitoba Hydro International. Could the minister provide the total number of employees at MHI for January 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do apologize for the Madam Speaker. Mr. Chair, thank you so much. And what we will do in respect to the member's question is we will, because of the time, and certainly we want to make sure that the member has every opportunity to voice his concerns and questions, certainly work collaboratively with Crown Services and this ministry. We're going to endeavor to get those answers to him during the course of this discussion. So we will revert back, and once I have that, I will certainly give that to him. And the member's question on his private member's bill, the member knows full well that during 2000, that there is an order actually stating that Manitoba Hydro or any Crown Corporation would have to go to the public. Manitobans own Manitoba Hydro. We know that, and we know the NDP don't know that, but that's already in existence. So Manitobans know better, and certainly Manitobans will continue to own Manitoba Hydro. We made that clear, and we continue down that road.
The member for St. James.
Yeah, and I appreciate the minister's offer to provide those employee numbers and to provide some transparency on that front. And again, I think the minister continues to play cute with his responses relating to hydro. And I'll reiterate once more for the record here, we have serious concerns about the direction that we're seeing in relation to Manitoba Hydro International. There are a number of really clear indications that it's being set up for sale. There are huge concerns by employees within that organization who are generally in a state of panic, many of whom have reached out to us out of concern for what they're seeing. And so while the government and while the minister continues to suggest that this is not a decision that in any way falls under their purview, I'd like to remind the minister that we're referencing a hydro subsidiary which is wholly owned by the people of Manitoba, and any suggestion that somehow he is in no way responsible for decision-making relating to that is ludicrous. And we're talking about a subsidiary that makes millions and millions of dollars for Manitobans. We're talking about a subsidiary that provides incredibly good, well-paying jobs, tech jobs, jobs that are forward-looking. They are the kind of jobs that Manitoba wants to build an economy around, or we could build an economy around. And unfortunately, we're seeing those jobs potentially being placed at risk. And if the minister doesn't believe me, he can reach out to some of the employees at Manitoba Hydro International to get more clarity on that question and their fears. You know, going back to this question about the stop sell order, I'm hoping that the minister can explain. There was an emergency board meeting set for October 8th, which we understand it was a date that the Hydro Board was going to discuss the future of Manitoba Hydro International. I'm wondering if the minister could please explain if the wind down or that stop work order has been reversed since that board meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, it's very typical of the member to continue down the road of fear. He mentions that he has proof or documents. I'd certainly welcome him to share them with us so that we can understand maybe potentially what he is talking to, who he's talking to, and what he's referring to. we would certainly appreciate that. Far from playing cute, we take our role, and I believe the member from St. James takes his role very seriously. When he puts his name on a ballot, he is there to represent the people of his constituency. And I know, and I hope the member knows that that is a very, very humbling opportunity that he's been provided by the residents of St. James. So I would hope that he would not create any more fear or put any falsehoods on the record stating that this minister or any of my colleagues or any of his other colleagues would ever take that job lightly, Mr. Chair. So I want to put that on the record because certainly we take offense to that. We work hard every day for Manitobans, and I would suspect the member from St. James does as well, and we will continue to in government. This meeting that the member refers to, again, he calls it an emergency meeting. This was a strategic investment session, Mr. Chair. And basically, it was just a strategic information meeting, period. This is meetings, look, boards have meetings all the time. And that's their job. That's what they do. They get together, they talk about strategic information that needs to come forward, potentially to advise the corporation, or in this case, or the corporation, or in other cases, businesses, stakeholders. That's what these type of meetings are about. So certainly we would be really concerned if those meetings were taking place, but I am certainly proud of the board at Manitoba Hydro and all my boards that take their job very seriously. Much like being elected and having Manitobans put their confidence in their elected officials, we certainly, collectively, we should be putting confidence in those board members that work hard every single day to ensure Manitobans are looked after.
The member for St. James.
Was the stop work order reversed since that board meeting?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Strategic Information Session Meeting.
The member for St. James.
I don't know if the minister is speaking in codes I don't understand, but the question was pretty simple. After the strategic meeting, or however he characterized it, did they or did they not require that a stop sell order continue for Manitoba Hydro International?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Again, I'll go back to essentially the governance model that has been in place for generations, where you have a board structure. The board is mandated to follow through with their mandates. They do meet, and I know this might be a shock to the member, but they do meet from time to talk strategically. And certainly that is their prerogative and that's their right to ensure that Manitobans are protected. So again, I know the member may have an issue with independent boards having meetings and to talk about strategic matters, but certainly that's not something that we should take away from our boards. They're accountable. They remain accountable. They're accountable to Manitobans. They're accountable to the corporation. They're accountable to government, and they're accountable to every member of the legislature. So certainly we commend them.
Member for St. James.
Thank you. A little rich for the minister to suggest that I'm not a fan of independent boards when his government is in fact eliminating the role of the Public Utilities Board as we know it. After many MHI employees had questions and concerns that were not being addressed as a result of the chaos that's been created there, they were then verbally told that they couldn't talk to anyone outside of Manitoba Hydro International, particularly media, about the situation at MHI. Did you or your government issue that directive to the board or management at Manitoba Hydro International?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you. Certainly I'm glad the member did acknowledge that he does have respect for governance of boards and board models, and certainly we do too. And that's exactly why again, we're undertaking a review of the PUB, which is going to save Manitobans millions of dollars. Go from annual GRAs, Mr. Chair, to long-term, like 5-year GRAs. So there's rate stabilities for Manitobans. Customers don't have to worry about rate shock going forward under the NDP. That was always a concern, and quite frankly, it continues to be simply because of the mess that they left Manitoba Hydro in. So, I'm pleased that the member does acknowledge that the boards do play an active role, and certainly we agree, and we're looking forward to the outcome. Reducing red tape again is an initiative. Reducing red tape and reducing duplication is the way to go, and certainly I know Manitobans agree with us.
The member for St. James.
Thank you. Could the minister provide how much profit was earned for Manitoba Hydro through its ownership share in Teshmont over the past 4 years? And if that could be broken down on a year-to-year basis, that would be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly I appreciate a question from the member on Teshmont. We'll go back a few weeks now, and again, the member, actually his leader, said the dark clouds have finally arrived and the sky is falling, and life as we know it is going to change in Manitoba, and we all know that that simply was not true, and the allegations that Manitoba Hydro sold Teshmont to the private sector and privatized it. Well, the member knows that Teshmont has been a corporation, a private corporation since 1966. Again, the member was a senior member of the Sellinger government and would probably recall during those years, Manitoba Hydro partnered with Teshmont for engineering expertise to be involved in the construction of Kiosk and Bipole 3. Is the understanding that we have been speaking for, and that's and then now the company they simply devoid themselves of their 40% stake because the company there's no further need because Kiosk and Bipole 3 are done and Kiosk will be coming online soon. So sounds like a business decision again by Manitoba Hydro, which certainly makes sense. I mean, if you buy into an asset and you require some services from that asset, whether it be private or public, in this case, a fully private company, so be it, in order to ensure that you're gaining the expertise and advice you need to engineer a project. absolutely a very smart move. Where I do disagree, though, is it was probably not necessary because we know why they did it. They did it to build the biggest boondoggle in Manitoba history, and that would be Kiosk and Bipole 3. That, Mr. Chair, in lies where we're really at today is the fact that, the NDP will scream, whoever will listen, privatize, privatize, privatize. Well, in essence, they partnered with private sector companies more than we have in the 5 years in government. They made a habit of it, and they used them, and then they essentially got out of them. So that's an interesting way of doing business. But, certainly in our business, my business, if we needed some expertise and it took a short-term partnership, then we would certainly consider that. However, that being said, I would be concerned more about the outcome of that investment in the fact that Manitoba's been saddled now with billions of dollars in debt. The member would be very aware, and as we are, we're on the eve of the economic review of Kiosk and Bipole report, which certainly I know the member is not anxious to see, but we are, and I know Manitobans are. And I'm sure that this particular topic will be a part of that overall process, considering it was a part of Kiosk and Bipole 3. So we're really excited about getting that report and sharing with Manitobans the truth behind the boondoggle, the biggest boondoggle in Manitoba history when it comes to Manitoba Hydro.
The member for St. James.
Yeah, I unfortunately hate to report it, but I don't think Manitobans are as excited about this report as the minister is. We're about to see a report from one of the biggest champions of coal in Canadian history, and Mr. Wall, himself somebody who has a long history of massive cost overruns on a number of huge public projects. So we won't be taking any lessons from him or from the report. So unfortunately, the audience for that report, I think, will be a little more limited than the minister is letting on there. I'd like to reiterate the question because it was never answered. Can the minister provide profits that were made by Teshmont that were sent to Hydro from Teshmont for the last 4 fiscal years?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
So we thank you, Mr. Chair, and we are endeavoring to acquire that information that the member from St. James is looking for. And if we don't have it by the time I'm done speaking this round, we'll endeavor to get it to him before the end of this the estimates meeting today. I will, however, just revert back to the comments made by the member from St. James regarding Mr. Brad Wall. This member has a history, and it's actually becoming more and more regular of insulting folks. And really, it doesn't matter from really what walk of life they come from, but he's building a character of himself, of somebody that really doesn't respect. I guess in this case, somebody that served the public for well over almost a quarter century, and continues to in another capacity today. One of the most decorated premiers in Manitoba, or in Canada, pardon me, Mr. Brad Wall has served the folks of Saskatchewan and served Saskatchewan very well, certainly over his tenure, and continues to in other capacities. So, I would caution the member just to ensure that, if he wants to go down the negative rabbit hole of painting very successful individuals, whether it be in politics or business, or better yet, the civil service or the public sector, then I would really caution him to be very careful to do that, because that's certainly not what the constituents of St. James, I think, elected. And I don't think that that's going to get him any brownie points at the local coffee shop in St. James.
The member for St. James.
I appreciate the career advice from the minister, and I can assure him that my constituents are very happy to know that I'm asking important questions about what this government is doing. Minister, I'm sure you know it's a difficult time financially for many Manitobans, especially those lower-income Manitobans who work in retail and hospitality and who continue to struggle as a result of the pandemic. With already difficult financial circumstances, could you explain the justification of raising hydro rates by 2.9% for Manitobans? And I'll clarify before you answer that. We know that every 1% increase equates to about $15 million. So could you help explain the rationale behind taking another $45 million from Manitobans' wallets next year?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly again, we certainly appreciate a question on costing Manitobans money. We all know the history of the NDP when it comes to taxes and how they raise them, and certainly I want to just take the committee back a little bit in time. Under the former NDP government, when the member from St. James was a senior staffer here in the building under the Selinger government. And I'm sure it was an interesting time when the Premier at that time, Premier Selinger, vetted the idea of raising the PST from 7 to 8%. Well, we certainly know that what happened there, Mr. Chair. Bottom line is the Rebel 5 stepped up, and I think the member, without getting into too many details, can probably recall that to the letter. But Manitobans said no thanks, but he went ahead and did it anyways, without a referendum. They didn't get a chance to vote on it. They just went ahead and did it. But before that, the member from St. James and his former government set it up. They not only raised it from 7 to 8%, but before that, they broadened it, Mr. Chair. They actually broadened the provincial sales tax to include haircuts and other ridiculous things that Manitobans and middle-income Manitobans, I might add, and low-income Manitobans require on a regular basis. So first of all, they broadened it, and then they raised it. And during an election campaign in 2011, and I recall because I ran in that campaign, Mr. Chair, we ran in 2011, I ran in Gimli. And I can tell you that the time that Premier Selinger was running, he had said, and I quote, "Raise the PST, that's total nonsense. Manitobans know we would never do that." 6 months later, he did, Mr. Chair. So we know where the credibility lies with the NDP when they talk raising taxes and taking money off Manitobans' table. 2.9%, again, is an interim increase that will cost Manitobans approximately $30 per year per household. And again, here we are left with generations of debt forced on our children and our grandchildren, which I have 5 of, by the way. And one day I will sit down with all 5 of them and explain exactly what happened during the NDP's ridiculous run for 17 years, hoping tons of debt on their... Matter of fact, their credit card, Mr. Chair, their credit card right now, it's maxed out. Their credit card is maxed out and no way of paying for it because of the high taxes the NDP left them. That's what our government's going to do. We're committing to ensure we lower taxes to make sure generations that come have the ability to pay off that darn credit card that they maxed out. Those payments coming out, the 2.9% increase, Mr. Chair, again, that goes right on debt, right on Manitoba NDP debt, Mr. Chair. That's where the 2.9% will go to ensure that we continue to keep rates low. Again, that PUB review, ensuring that we reduce red tape. We save millions of dollars for Manitobans. We have long 5-year GRA commitments, stable rates for Manitobans. So those young generations, my grandkids, will know that when they start their first job and they move out and have their apartment, they're in the apartment and they're paying hydro. They know that the next 3.5 or 4 years, depending on when that 5-year cycle ends, they'll have a fixed rate and they know that they'll be able to pay their hydro bill.
The member for St. James.
Thank you. That was quite a soliloquy. Wow. The minister talks about, the supposed lack of fair treatment from the last NDP government and our lack of concern for ensuring affordability. So let's just focus back in on what we're talking about here today in the midst of a pandemic. We're talking about a government that is forcing thousands of Manitoba Hydro employees to take wage cuts, that is forcing thousands of Manitoba Hydro employees to have their wages frozen even though they had an unconstitutional bill which was rejected by Manitoban courts. And now they're piling on by adding a 2.9% rate increase for all Manitobans, which we have no ability to assess for its legitimacy because it's not being channeled through the Public Utilities Board. Will the minister admit that they're breaking the law right now by trying to legislate a rate increase without taking it to the Public Utilities Board, given that there's a process which still remains in place?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this certainly gives me an opportunity to put some more facts on the record with respect to Manitoba Hydro and their debt. And certainly the member will know that Manitoba Hydro's debt has been increasing rapidly and is now projected by the end of March 2021 to be $23.3 billion. That's billion dollars, Mr. Chair. And the member is a banker, former banker. I guess maybe one day he might go back into the banking industry, which is a good thing. My daughter's a banker, works at a credit union, actually. I think we had this talk before. So credit rating agencies, as the member knows, are expressing increasing levels of concern when it comes to Manitoba Hydro's financial position. Being a banker, I know you'd understand. The member from St. James would, S&P, Moody's, and DBRS, are concerned about the ability to generate sufficient revenues to meet the debt service requirements. So, I'd be interested to ask the question to the member. What he feels about that, being a banker. I'm not a banker. I've certainly ran a business. I understand how that works. And I think as a business owner, you end up being kind of a jack of all trades. You end up being an accountant, a lawyer, an HR rep, you name it. So, but certainly I don't profess to be a banker. So the member would understand and certainly appreciate the ability to pay, especially when your debt to equity ratio is so high. Look, we got to be able to service debt, debt that was forced on Manitobans by the NDP. So I appreciate the question from the member, but I think he's got more to answer for on this than I do.
The member for St. James.
Can the minister explain if the rate increase was requested by the Board of Hydro or by the President?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And, again, I mentioned this before, the amount of debt that's been saddled on Manitoba Hydro, essentially Manitobans, is substantial, $23+ billion. 2.9% is essentially there to pay down that debt and ensure that the next generation don't have to face this kind of debt ever again, Mr. Chair. And I mean, that's the long and the short of it. That's what the 2.9% represents.
The member for St. James.
Was the rate increase requested by the Board of Hydro or by the President of Hydro?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you, member from St. James, for the question. And again, during estimates in Hydro, Hydro was looking at an increase of requiring an increase of 3.5%. And Mr. Chair, and as we indicated in the throne speech, we are in what will be remembered as one of the worst pandemics in the history of the world. And certainly we've made reference to that and the impacts it has on Manitobans in particular, and rates and taxes and all those areas that government can control as far as taxes go. And certainly during the throne speech, we had said that that rate would be 2.9%. Again, in light of COVID, $30 on the average homeowner in Manitoba, and also to ensure that Manitoba Hydro is still in a position to pay down debt and operate sustainably in the short term. So certainly a measured approach. The member will appreciate that, I'm sure. Again, from his banking career, he knows that you have to make decisions based on a measured approach, especially in financial realms. And that's exactly what we'll continue to do, is make decisions for the best betterment of Manitobans.
The member for St. James.
Bill 35 recommends tying rate setting to a formula, and specifically a formula that's focused on allowing Manitoba Hydro to achieve a debt-to-equity ratio of 25/75. Can the minister just confirm that that's the case?
Mr. Chair?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, we seem to have some cutout once in a while. Can I just get the member to please repeat the question?
The Honourable Member.
Thank you. Bill 35 recommends tying rate setting to a formula, specifically a formula that's focused on allowing Hydro to achieve a debt-to-equity ratio of 25/75. Can the minister explain, or actually I'll just start there, can the minister confirm that that is in fact the case?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And the bill the member from St. James is referring to is under finance. And as we had questions yesterday that were related to areas that would be better addressed by central services, I would suspect that the question the member is asking would be better addressed by the Minister of Finance. However, on another note, just if I may revert back for the benefit of the committee, net income for Teshmont share in the last 4 years was $2.9 million. That's net income over the last 4 years, $2.9 million, Teshmont. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The member for St. James.
I'll repeat the question, and I hope the minister can appreciate that it's entirely reasonable for me to be asking about a bill that applies directly to departments under his purview. Does Bill 35 intend on essentially allowing Manitoba Hydro to achieve a debt-to-equity ratio of 25/75? Is that what it seeks to do?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, I have a couple updates for the member from St. James to provide him. First of all, on his first question on the 75-25. Again, these proposed changes will ensure oversight and public involvement, Mr. Chair, in the ongoing capital planning, which is important, of course, while ensuring that debt is paid down over a 20-year period to a more sustainable level. And I know the member has a tough time with, well, he has an easy time creating debt, but he has a tough time paying for it. So this is a more sustainable level and of 75-25. Again, he would understand that being a banker, but certainly we need to ensure that this is done in a measured way and with a 20-year planning process. We believe that that'll be beneficial to Manitobans as we go through this together. On another note, the member had a question regarding MHI FTE count for the last 4 years. I can share with the member. I'm sure he's ready to write. 2016-17, 134 FTEs. 2017-18, 146 FTEs. 2018-19, 135 FTEs. And 2019-20, 137 FTEs.
The member for St. James.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that information. That's greatly appreciated. I think the key concern here that I think it's important to put down on the record is that the bill as structured that the minister keeps suggesting offers confidence for Manitobans and some sort of regularity in rate setting is hugely problematic. And the reason for that is that the ratio that they're tying the bill to, which is this debt to equity ratio, is not a reasonable measure of financial health for a public organization. When monies are stored as equity in that debt to equity ratio, they're actually just held in reserve. So when we talk about creating a rate setting formula that sets rates tied to that specific ratio, the debt to equity ratio, what we're actually doing here is we're taking money and storing it away, socking it away in hydro bank accounts with no actual response to any kind of fiscal or financial risk for the organization. So the concern is that the bill is not only wrong in 100 different ways, but that just like what this government seems to be doing and jacking up rates and taking money away from Manitoba, thousands of hydro employees, it's unnecessarily socking away dollars that belong to Manitobans and having them sit in bank accounts when those funds are in no way responding to any kind of real financial risk for a government-backed organization. Moving on now to questions about broadband and dark fibre, I'm hoping the minister can explain the role of the fairness monitor in the broadband contract.
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister of Crown Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, we did talk about this yesterday with the member from St. James. And again, I'll just recap some of those discussions for him. We talked about what the role of Manitoba Hydro and in particular Crown Services is with respect to the RFP. The RFP is housed over at Central Services. What Manitoba Hydro is providing is pretty clear. It's providing the opportunity to utilize dark fiber to ensure that they can provide, and the proponent, a successful proponent, can provide connectivity, better cell service throughout areas in rural and northern Manitoba and our First Nations. So certainly we support the work of my colleague and the Department of Central Services in that RFP process, in the fact that Hydro will be there with dark fiber. And certainly we know that COVID, and again, I'll put on the record that COVID has really provided all Manitobans the opportunity to realize in their own homes that connectivity is one of the poorest actually in the nation. We'd argue that it likely is. And again, under the former government, there were a number of small service providers who do great work, by the way, have been providing bits and pieces of connectivity to we'll call the more lucrative areas, urban areas. I mean, that's where your population is. And certainly, we got to understand that more as we went through this process in government, and understood that, after the last 17, 20 years of going down this path and using this model, it wasn't working. I mean, and COVID really showed us that. It provided us a path to try to expedite this process, and that's exactly what my colleague, along with the partnership of Manitoba Hydro, are going to do as they go forward, and ensure that, look, for First Nations, the federal government has already pulled out of a project in the north, and that's just shameful. And we obviously recognize that our First Nations need, especially during these tough times, connectivity, reliable connectivity. They're not having to drive to a local internet chat site. They can actually have connectivity in their homes on First Nations in rural and remote areas, and quite frankly, all of Manitoba. So to the member's question, again, certainly I try to put a little context around the question, and I hope I've done that for him. Again, Manitoba Hydro's commitment to make available dark fiber for the opportunity for a successful proponent or proponents to go ahead and connect the very underutilized areas of our province, in particular our First Nations, who really will rely and will continue to rely on good connectivity going forward.
The member for St. James.
The process of auctioning off Hydro's broadband business, when we have our own publicly owned telecom, began with an RFQ almost a year ago. Then we had an RFP in July. Yet you just recently posted an RFP for a fairness monitor after the fact. Why did you feel the need to bring in a fairness monitor months after the RFP was posted?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister of Crown Services.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, I appreciate the question from the member, and I will remind the member again that the fairness monitor that he is referring to is an RFP issued by Central Services, and certainly I've explained to him what Crown Services and in particular Manitoba Hydro's involvement is and continues to be. One thing that we don't do is, we don't, like the NDP like to do, is bring their toys and steal the other one's sandbox. So we don't do that. But certainly, I have all the confidence in my colleague at Central Services, and I'm sure that if the member from St. James has a question, he can follow up with him.
The member for St. James.
You know, it's really just depressing to hear the responses from the minister, who keeps sidestepping the question here and continues to suggest that all of my questions relating to his department should be directed to one of his colleagues who's responsible for procurement. I'd suggest the minister should pay closer attention to what's happening in his department so he can answer important questions that Manitobans reasonably have about the auctioning off of fibre that we all own and that he's currently the minister responsible for. The key concern here is that we currently, as the owners of that fibre, are able to determine who gets access to that, which companies get access to which jobs in creating increased broadband connectivity across the north. And what we're seeing right now is a move towards handing over the keys to a major telco, probably out of province, for an indefinite period of time. And we all know what happens when we see increasing role of the private sector in this kind of work. We can expect higher costs, we can expect reduced access, and we can expect that all of those Manitoba-based internet service provider companies that are currently creating great jobs for Manitobans, that are ensuring that those profits that are made stay in Manitoba, are going to be funneled out of the province, and we're going to see bigger profits for Bell MTS. And I think that that's something that we should all be concerned about, and I think it's something that the minister should be able to answer very basic questions about. So I'll ask his rationale. What is the reasoning behind contracting out of house to private providers?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair? The Honourable Minister of Crown Services.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, the member starts off with his old theme of fear, and let me put some facts on the record for him. He talks about deflecting questions to other departments. Well, in particular, he's talking about the RFP process. Well, the member would know, I would hope, but maybe not. Let me see if we can educate him a bit. Central Services is a procurement arm on behalf of government. They procure things like RFPs, for instance. Like, they actually go out to market and ask companies to quote. First of all, they ask if they're prepared to be involved in the process with an RFQ. Second of all, they put out an RFP, which the member kindly reminded everybody online, and I will remind them too, because we have been down this road before. So, first of all, the member knows the process, so I don't know why he thinks, we're punting anything to anybody any other department where he feels it should be answered by Crown Services. He should know protocol. Simple governance, Mr. Chair. Simple governance. He knows that. So shame on him. So back to the interesting comment about privatizing and moving, again, here's the fear part, and moving network to a single telco. I agree with the member on why he is, first of all, speaking about Bell MTS, when there's 5 proponents that have put a bid in on an RFQ. I don't know why the member continues to, maybe, I don't know, maybe he knows something that we don't, but he keeps mentioning Bell MTS, Mr. Chair. Well, there are other active large telco firms and small that are taking part in the bidding process and currently through the RFP process, Mr. Chair. So, I would encourage the member, as this process continues to evolve for the betterment of Manitobans, that he watch and be very, very cautious of what he says. This is a public process. It will continue to be. We have 5 interested proponents that are bidding currently in an RFP to help Manitobans. What the heck is the problem with that? I asked that member.
The member for St. James.
The concern, of course, we have is that Manitoban wealth is being handed from public hands, where we have dark fiber that we currently are the collective owners of, and that it's being handed over to private hands, which is this government's specialty. And it's their use of a concession model, which is privatization by another name, which this minister knows very well is ultimately the destination we're headed for here. And frankly, Manitobans are concerned about that. Manitobans are concerned about this government's tendency to hand public wealth over to private hands. So I'm going to pass the floor over to my colleague, Mr. Sandhu.
The member for Maples.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much to date has been spent on the conciliator? Sorry, we are going to MPI, so from Manitoba Hydro.
Mr. Chair?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly would like to also welcome the member from Maples. We don't have an opportunity to talk, and I appreciate the estimates process gives us an opportunity to work collaboratively during this process, and I appreciate his obviously his ability to advocate for his constituents, and certainly we're looking forward to a good discussion on Manitoba Public Insurance. As the member knows, they're still in conciliation, and our understanding at this point, and I will get the member the exact number. I just know that he probably wants to move on to another question, but I can tell you that the conciliation will be within budget.
The member for Maples.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. How far are we into process? Like, how long is going to take the conciliator's report to be completed?
Mr. Chair?
The honester, let me try that again. It's hasn't been a short meeting. Okay, the Honourable Minister of Crown Services in response to the member for the Maples.
Payback, Mr. Chair? Payback, I get it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the question from the member from the Maples, and there's no doubt we're looking forward to a successful process. I know the conciliator, along with IBEM and MPI, have been working well together, and we certainly fully anticipate having a decision by the end of this year.
The member for Maples.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Minister, for the answer. And also, Minister, I think there was an extension done between IBM and MPI for 2 years. That extension is coming pretty soon, this year in 2021. So the report will be completed before in this year or the next year?
Mr. Chair?
The Minister of Crown Services.
Aye, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, and I thank again the member from the Maples for the question. And as I alluded to in my previous answer, we fully anticipate having the conciliator wrap up by the end of the year. The extension would run to March 31st, 2021. So we don't anticipate there being an issue there.
Mr. Chair.
The member for Maples.
Thank you, Minister, for the answer. So from your answer, I get it that the report will be completed this year. Well, this report will be released to the public?
Just as we're waiting for that, a note to all members that please make sure your phones are on silence We recently picked up a rendition of Madonna. We're not sure if it's from a car stereo or from somebody's phone, but just make sure your phones can't be heard. Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, certainly, and again, thank the member from the Maples. Certainly, when the final agreement is done and they move forward, the two groups, certainly the agreement will be public for sure. I mean, this has been a very collaborative process, and certainly we're looking forward to having the parties reach a final agreement for the betterment of Manitobans, I might add.
The member for Maples.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Could the Minister provide some insight to what type of agreement is sought to be being reached with MPI and brokers?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the member should know, and if he doesn't, I'll just remind him that there's an active conciliation process being undertaken right now between the two parties. And, certainly that's not something that we would speak to as Crown Corporations. We expect the facilitator and the two parties are working through various topics and other areas, and will continue to do that with the mandate that they were provided to move forward. So certainly wouldn't be our choice to be getting involved in anything like that at all, and we certainly wouldn't for sure. If I could just revert back to for the members' benefit, he'd asked about the dollar amount to date for the conciliator, currently $200,000.
Mr. Chair.
The member for Maples.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Is there any advice or any direction is given to MPI to seek what kind of services they want to be online? Is there any advice from the Minister or from the Crown Services or from the government to MPI?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister of Crown Services.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Certainly, I appreciate the question from the member from the Maples, and this gives me an opportunity to again go back to some discussions with his colleague, the member from St. James, where the member from Maples will recall too the interference that the NDP did directly involve themselves in Crown corporations. We went through a number of instances through Manitoba Hydro, and certainly will remind the member of the instances with MPI when at the time NDP government was using the profits of MPI for their gains politically without any consideration to Manitobans who are the ratepayers of MPI. So, Mr. Chair, certainly, as I said to the member from St. James, I'll say to the member from Maples, we are here in a capacity to support our Crown corporations. Crown corporations are governed within. They have a board governance, they have executive teams, and they have every opportunity and ability to ensure that they're operating to the best interests of Manitobans, and that's exactly what they do at MPI every single day.
Mr. Chair.
The member for Maples.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll remind the Minister too, on July 24th, 2019, Minister of Crown Service issues a directive to MPI to enter into a conciliation with Insurance Broker Association of Manitoba. I think this is also a direct interference by the Crown Services Minister. So it's just the common sense, just asking the question, was there any directive other than that was provided to MPI?
Mr. Chair?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you. And certainly I thank the member from the Maples for pointing out my colleague at the time, Minister Mayer. And again, wonderful MLA, wonderful representative of St. Vital, and we miss her, certainly. And certainly we wish her all the best. But during her tenure here as minister, she did a fabulous job in working with our Crown corporations and helping set the table for myself to come in and continue in her legacy. So I would like to get on record. I'd like to thank my former colleague, Minister Mayer and MLA for St. Vital for all the work she did during her time in government. With that being said, on July 24th, 2019, there was a directive issued. And what I will do for the member from Maples today is, again, just give him a little bit of an education on what some of the mandates are of the Crown Services Department. And one of them is to issue a directive. And in this case, a directive was issued to get two parties, IBAM and MPI, to the table with a mandate to work out certainly a bargain, an agreement, to ensure that Manitobans' interests were looked after. Henceforth, the conciliator was brought on board, and the conciliator was picked by the two parties. So this conciliator, Mr. Finkbinder, was picked by IBAM and MPI to work through the process to help get the two parties to the table to come to an agreement to better all Manitobans. So for the member from the Maples, I hope that gives him some clarity on there's a difference between political meddling, which his former government were very good at, and continue to try to do that today in opposition because they still feel they own Manitoba Hydro. Hopefully they get over that one day. But, certainly the member would now realize, and I hope I've made it clear, that there's a difference between meddling and directives under legislation. So, I hope the member from the Maples understands that now, and I'm glad to be able to help him through that process.
Mr. Chair.
The member for Maples.
Thanks, Minister, for the education. How many individuals had completed MELT training so far in 2020?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Thanks, and thank the member for that question. Very important, of course, MELT and MELT training. Certainly, it's an initiative that we support wholeheartedly. Of course, taking us back to Humboldt, and being a former owner of a international van line, I can appreciate the challenges that Class 1 drivers face every single day when they're on the road, and they need to be given and provided the tools necessary. What I can tell the member, though, is MELT is actually does run through two departments. It runs through MPI, yes, and it also runs through Manitoba Infrastructure. So what I'm going to endeavor to do is we've just reached out and ensure that we can get the number of trained drivers to the member by 5 o'clock. We're endeavoring to do that for him, and we'll certainly look forward to another question.
Mr. Chair,
The member for Maples.
could you tell us how long wait time are to get a Class 1 knowledge test and Class 1 road test?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Just some clarity, if I may, from the member. Again, just want to be clear what he's asking for. Does he want to know how long it's taking for a Class 1 driver to be totally certified? And there was another part of that question as well. If you could just please repeat the question. I want to make sure that we provide the member all the accurate information that he deserves.
The member for Maples.
Just want to know what is the wait time to get a knowledge test once you write a test, and also how long is the road test waiting time is.
Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I would just like to apologize to the member from Maples. We're endeavoring to get the answers he's looking for. I certainly, with COVID, there's been a number of moving targets, very fluid issue with respect to training times and wait times. With the different public health orders coming into play, and there's been a number of moving targets. So we will endeavor to get that to him before 5 o'clock. But certainly, in light of the time, I would like to just have the opportunity to be able to provide that to him prior to 5 o'clock and give the member another opportunity for another question.
Mr. Chair.
The member for Maples.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have heard so many times Minister was saying like he was a small-time businessman. So my question is, when like he have operated his small business, how will he feel if a government comes in and give an advantage to someone else? So my question is, what kind of advantage is given to Uber during this time?
Mr. Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And certainly I appreciate the fact that the member realizes that I was a small business owner in the transportation industry. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you acknowledging that. Certainly it was a great opportunity to grow a company from the ground up, and my wife and I are very proud of that, and so thank you for acknowledging that. Back to the member's question about unfair advantage. The member will know when Bill 19 was introduced in the House, again, this was the TexCamp board at the time, and the initiative was to ensure that oversight would be essentially handed to where it should be, and that's at the municipal level, in particular the City of Winnipeg in this case. But expanding on that, any and all 136 other municipalities in the province would have an opportunity to essentially put their own legislation forward, or resolution or a bylaw, depending on what they were looking at, to allow rideshare companies like Uber to come into their municipalities. Exactly the same issue happened here in Winnipeg, where a number of firms, as soon as the municipality of the City of Winnipeg was the responsible entity for rideshare, the bylaws were written in collaboration with the rideshare companies, including the cab driver organizations, Unicity and Duffy, and certainly all those aspects were were balanced and moved forward in a way that it was fair and transparent. So to the member, when he's asking about unfair advantage, I'm not sure where he's going. I know that Uber, in particular, because that's who he's referring to, initially they refused to come to Manitoba because MPI was not creating an uneven playing field. They were committed to a uniform process, and that's exactly what they did. And I can tell the member that that's exactly what it is like today, where Uber and any other rideshare company are all subject to the same laws and bylaws and legislation through MPI as anybody else that wants to come here and work in Manitoba. As you know, Manitoba is open for business, and we welcome any rideshare company that wants to come here for the betterment of all Winnipeggers and Manitobans.
Mr. Chair.
The member for Maples.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Let me tell the minister that any taxi industry, they weren't against Uber or any ride sharing companies. All they wanted were level playing field. So when the Uber came into the market, they said they got a private insurance. Can the minister elaborate a little bit more on what kind of private insurance did they get?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank the member from the Maples for that question. And again, I'll just kind of reiterate, and I know I've got a few minutes left, so I just want to make sure I get some of these other answers on the record for the member. But Uber had, when they first came to Manitoba, have their own insurance coverage. That was not acceptable. That's not what the MPI Act would allow. They needed to buy basic coverage through MPI, and that's exactly what they agreed to, and that's why they're now here in Manitoba. So I hope that answers the member's question. All rideshare companies under the Act, under the MPI Act, have to have basic coverage through MPI. So that is as level playing field as you can have. For the member, also too as well, there are approximately, and I just wanted to go back to his question on MELT. Approximately, there's 250 to 300 Class 1 tests per month, which is very consistent with the historical averages, even though we're in COVID. And August, there was 318. And in September, there was 300. And again, I just want to make sure I get that last bit of information on for him regarding Class 1. Tests are booked in advance, of course. On average, Class 1 in Winnipeg is about 33 days. Class 1 rule In particular, Brandon, 40 days, Thompson, 1 day, and all others are averaging about 45 days for that Class 1. So I hope that gives the member the information that he was looking for. Sounds like MPI is doing a wonderful job in ensuring that drivers are getting the training in a timely manner in light of the fact that they are dealing with the same thing all other Manitobans are, is COVID, of course, and certainly with a lot of Manitobans working from home and their lives being totally disrupted in many, many areas. Certainly, it looks like and it sounds like MPI are continuing to provide Manitobans the service that they count on every single day to ensure that they have the opportunity to expand or grow their businesses and ensure that their drivers have the tools in the toolkit to protect not only them, their families, but also other drivers on the road. So with that, I think I've answered those questions, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
The hour being 5 o'clock, committee rise.